Energy media readers will have watched a couple of videos that I've done with Professor Mark Winfield of York University about the problems in the Ontario electricity system over the next few years as they basically take 3 nuclear reactors offline during the 2020s, and they plan to replace that with natural gas, which then has raised concerns amongst municipalities like Toronto about rising GHG emissions. Is there a solution to this? It's a very difficult one, but hydrogen may offer some hope. So we're going to talk to Mark Kirby, the head of the Canadian Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association, about what the role that hydrogen might play in solving this problem. So welcome to the interview, Mark.
Good to be here, Markham. Thank you.
So what are your thoughts on hydrogen replacing natural gas in Ontario gas power plants?
Well, it's technically very feasible. Hydrogen can be used to displace natural gas in natural gas turbines, and that can be used to generate power, and there are no resulting GHG emissions from those turbines. So as long as the hydrogen that's being used is sourced from a clean source, with, in other words, a source that doesn't emit GHG emissions itself, then the whole process can be net zero. There are certainly some technical hurdles to be overcome in adapting the turbines and the piping and the controls, but those have been shown to work in other jurisdictions, and there are many companies around now that can offer that technology. So it is certainly technically feasible to make those gas-fired turbines net zero, as long as what you're firing them with is net zero hydrogen.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with Fortis BC. They're a partner in the High Deal LA project, which is a project amongst the city of LA and a number of corporate partners to create a hydrogen hub. And the first customers for hydrogen there will be natural gas power plants. Absolutely. So it almost seems like might be a model that Ontario could copy.
Well, I think it's not only in LA. There's quite a number of locations where, first of all, people are looking to develop hydrogen hubs, and I think Ontario should be looking at that. And in fact, there is quite a bit of discussion in Ontario about establishing hubs, and hubs being areas where multiple users share a common hydrogen source to get scale, to get the costs down. When you look at utilities, the nice thing there is they can be very good baseload customers for such hubs. So you can produce that hydrogen for the utilities, and now it's also available at a very attractive price for transportation applications, for industrial processing, et cetera. So real interest in getting hubs underway and having baseload customers such as gas utilities. Now, how can the gas utilities use that hydrogen? Well, they can start off very easily by blending it into natural gas, and you can do anywhere, and then there's some debate still and some work to be done, but at least 5% and likely up to considerably higher levels can be blended into the natural gas without needing to change much in the downstream system at all. So all your appliances and so on can continue to use it, and bingo, you're getting GHG emission reductions right off the bat. Now, you can only go so far with that. And then you have to start making some changes. But again, no fundamental technical barriers. Many of the piping systems that feed our homes and businesses are hydrogen compatible today. And then it's a matter of burner changes and such like on the appliances to make them adaptable to use pure hydrogen. So again, no technical barriers to starting to shift no insurmountable technical barriers, let me be more clear, to starting to shift our grid system and our appliances towards pure hydrogen heat. And again, remind you that when you burn pure hydrogen, you're not emitting any GHG emissions. So if that was what was delivered to the front door of your home, and you use that for your gas barbecue and your gas fireplace and your stove and your heater and your water heater and your furnace, you would be emitting no GHGs. Now, the challenge comes down, of course, to economics. And, it's the difficulty is that natural gas is a pretty good fuel. It's very inexpensive, and it's fairly low in GHG emissions. So the alternatives tend to add cost versus just burning natural gas. But we do know we need to start shifting away from natural gas. I mean, it's got to happen at some point. And so really what is important is to keep those options open.
So now Alberta, which has a lot of natural gas, is looking at creating hydrogen from natural gas, then taking the CO2 that's a byproduct and sequestering it underground in, I guess, in old oil and gas reservoirs in Alberta. Is that the kind of technology that might be appropriate for Ontario, or would it be more looking at the, well, you know, using electrolyzers and wind and solar electricity to make hydrogen?
I think that Ontario will use a mix of different technologies to get its clean hydrogen, and it will use certainly its clean power to make hydrogen electrolytically. It'll use biomass and residual materials, biomaterials to make it, and it certainly can look at using natural gas with carbon management. When you look at the cost, and cost is going to be a major consideration. Certainly using fossil fuels with carbon management is today the lowest cost option. So if Ontario was to go into using it in a large scale, such as in running one of its gas generation plants, that would probably be the right solution for the next 10, 15 years. But the cost of making hydrogen electrolytically and the cost of power continues to come down. So, and all the projections are is that it will over time actually get lower than the cost of natural gas and with CCUS. So I think it'll be a transition, but certainly from a starting point, that is one thing that Ontario would be well advised to look at closely is fossil fuel with CCUS, and that technology is well proven. They're showing the ability to capture over 95% of the CO2. So I think it's a very viable option that people should be thinking about.
Final question, Mark. What role might the carbon tax play in this? Because the federal carbon tax will rise to $170 a ton by 2030. This problem is really one that will be an issue for Ontario between 2025 and 2030, just when the carbon tax is getting fairly high. Might that change the economics sufficiently to, favor hydrogen sooner than 10 or 15 years?
Well, that's the challenge with natural gas, because as mentioned, it's very cheap and relatively low CO2. So even with the carbon tax, just burning natural gas and paying that tax will probably still be the low cost option. So there's going to have to be, if we want to start making a dent in that in the use of natural gas, there's got to be some additional incentives or reasons why companies would do that. And in BC, for example, we're putting in a renewable standard in our natural gas to lower the carbon content of that natural gas, and so policies such as that can help provide additional incentive to encourage the adoption of hydrogen in natural gas.
Great, Mark. Thank you very much for this. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you very much. Bye now.